Alright, welcome back guys. For this video, instead of doing the usual voiceover that I do, I decided to record this in real time because the details on drawing the eye is pretty lengthy and I feel that doing a voiceover would take a long time for me to edit, plus I might be off. And when I'm drawing, I don't really think about describing exactly what to do, especially when doing the eyes, and the eyes are very detailed. So instead, I'm going to give the instructions in real time. Usually for the eyes, the distance between the eyes and the nose, I kind of eyeball it, but I would say about the nose bridge is about 1 or 2 inches from the eyes. If you have it too far, it'll look kind of strange because then you have a really long bridge of the nose. But if you put it too short, then of course it'll look really strange because you have a short bridge. So you can kind of eyeball it and see exactly where to put it. I'm probably going to put it about 1.5 inches from the nose. And you could put it from 1 inch or 2 inches, but I suggest not to go anything above those measurements. Because if you measure the distance between your eye and the bottom of, or the middle of your nose, you'll see that it's around 1 inch or 2. Also, when I draw the eye, I don't like to freehand draw it exactly like I do the mouth and nose. I like to draw a line. And the reason I do this is so I can get the eyes closer to being even. If they look a little weird or off, then it doesn't come off as good as it would if it's close to being more even. Unlike the mouth and the nose where it can be a little off regarding one side being larger than the other, when the eyes are off, it makes the person look really strange. And although some people are like that in person, I don't think it's very appealing when you're drawing something, and most people probably don't have eyes that are that far off. So you can use a ruler, but I'm probably just going to use the edge of something like a composition notebook. So I decided to use a magazine to draw the edge. I'm not going to exactly measure this. What I'm just going to do is eye it, and I believe the eye should go around here. When you're drawing the eyes, or whenever you're drawing lines of reference on a face, it's better to use lighter pencils like a 2H or a 4H. I'm using a 2H. I'll do a video on the difference between these soon. But for right now, I guess you can just find a 2H pencil. Of course, if you don't have a 2H pencil, make sure you draw very lightly with your regular number 2 pencil. This might look crooked on camera, but it's because of the angle of the camera, not really the face. Plus, the angle of my face is a little bit off. Go more on the face than you will on the paper. If the face looks like the alignment, it's diagonal, then make sure you line it up diagonal. Don't do it based on the piece of paper. So I'm going to go up about 1.5 inches, and I'm going to draw a very faint line. Mostly, almost all the way across the paper. And that'll be where my eyes will go. It's a little hard to see this line on the paper. The beginning part of your eye is usually where the end of your nose is on either side. This, of course, the nostril. Of course, it's the end where the nostril is. So you make a mark here, and you can make a mark here. Also keep a note that the distance between your eyes is the same length of your eye. So I'm going to try to get this as close to the end of the nostril as possible. And you can measure it by hand or you can measure with an actual ruler. I just do it by hand just to make it quick because of course it's not going to be exactly perfect. It's still a human being. So I just measure by finger. Approximately how far it'll be like this. And then I bring that over here. And that's the width of the eye. And you do that on both sides. If it seems like it's too big, you can always adjust things. Or, you can do whatever you like. You also want to make sure the proportions are pretty relative to your nose and your mouth. If you have a very small nose and a very small mouth, of course when you do the distance between the nose, it's going to affect the eyes. But you also want to be sure that you don't make them too open or too wide, then it'll look kind of strange with large eyes. That was a problem I ran into when I was beginning. I would make my eyes too big and it would look unrealistic. So I'm just going to do a basic almond shaped eye with a slight dip in the beginning of the eye. This eye type is common amongst Asians or East Africans. So I start with the dip and then I do a slight arch, not too much, and then end at the bottom. You don't want to do it too large because then the eyes are going to look too big. And to do the bottom part, I'm going to start where that dip is And I'm going to do a slight arch going up, then down, and then meet at the very end. Now these eyes look relatively small, but you don't want them to be too large because then it'll look unrealistic. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And make sure it's kind of the same height on both sides of the eye. It doesn't have to be perfect, of course. And I'm going to turn the paper sideways. It's easier for me to draw that way. And I'm going to finish this off like that. Now notice how this drops down a little more than this. So I'm going to edit that. You can always come back and make any changes that you feel necessary in case you do something too large, too small. And this is why using a lighter pencil is good. Or a harder lead pencil is good when drawing things like this, because if you make mistakes, it'll be easier to correct these mistakes. Since we're going to use this for a painting is not as important, this is something to keep in mind when you're just drawing a picture or a portrait. Now I'm going to lightly erase the outlines that I've just done, but be careful not to erase the line because you're still going to want to use that line. Of course, I'm going to come back and bolden those lines up some, but for right now I'm going to leave them relatively light. Then you go into the pupil. Well, before you go into the pupil, you want to get the flesh that's on the inside corner of your eye. This is something that you just have to look at an eye to see. But there's a piece of flesh. If you look at your eye in the mirror, you'll see that there's flesh that comes about right here in the eye. Of course, everybody's eye is different. I'll zoom in so you can see that better. But every eye is different. Some people's, this part is very hard to see. And some people have thicker water lines. I'm not going to draw a water line, but well, I'm not going to have a water line in my final painting, but I'll draw a water line just to see, so you can see. Some people have pretty thick water lines that are very noticeable. I've noticed this is more prevalent in Caucasians. Once you've done that inner flesh, then you can kind of figure out exactly where the iris and the pupil go. Depending on the person is looking will determine exactly where you draw the iris and the pupil. My person is going to be looking pretty straight. If you have someone that's looking to the side, you're going to, of course, draw your eye more to the side. So I'm going to draw it to the side just for the sake of this. Actually, I might keep it at the side. So clearly this person is looking to their right. Of course, our left or my left. They're looking to the right. And also keep in mind, when you draw the pupil, a mistake that I used to make, and maybe other people's make, is when I have someone looking this direction, I would usually try to draw the pupil in the middle of the eye. But the problem with that is that it's not necessarily natural, because then it makes it look like they're looking straight, but also looking to the right. What you want to do, and you have to do this very carefully, because then it'll look strange if you don't, is you slightly move the pupil over more to the right, well, to my right, to my left and their right. That way it looks like they're looking to their left, or to my left. You also don't want to draw the pupil too large, or the iris too large. If you draw it too large, it'll look like they have not natural eyes. It'll look like monsters do with their large eyes. And you don't want to draw it too small, because then it'll look like the eyes are peaty. The thing is to do is, the top part is going to be cut off most of the way. So this is going to be the widest range, and the bottom usually has a slight cutoff or no cutoff at all. So let me further explain that. Here, I'll show you what I mean. Here's just a quick drawing of an eye. I'm going to do two, or I'm going to do three and show you what I mean. This, if you draw the eye in the middle, it'll look a little strange. It'll look like they're very wide-eyed. If you're going for that look, of course, that's fine. But you also don't want to make it too dilated, because it looks a little strange, almost like a monster. Too much is cut off. Or if they're squinting, that's appropriate. If someone is squinting, this is an appropriate way to draw the eyes. But if the eyes are a normal size, you're not going to want to draw it like that. You're going to want to draw it where the top part of the iris is cut off, and the bottom part is barely cut off, if if any at all. And then you're going to make that circle. That looks like how a normal open eye would look. Once you've done that, you could finalize any other details. You can also draw the lid. Depending on whether you want your character to have a lid or not will determine how you draw their lid. Some people have lids that go over their eyes slightly. Some people have lids that are no lids, hardly any lids at all. Some people have very deep set eyes. As far as crease goes, I'm not really sure how I'm going to do it, but for now I'm going to do the eyebrows. And the way to do the eyebrows is the eyebrows are in line with the nose and the corner of the eye. Of course, the corner, it's not going to be exact, but it's going to be pretty close. And it's also going to be at least about, I'd say about an inch away from the top of the eye. So you want to start here, and it'll end kind of close to a little bit past the end of the eye. It's good to start with a drawing of how you're going to want your eyebrows, an easy line drawing, and then you can fill it in later. Because this is a sketch for a painting, I'm going to draw it as a box, how I want the eyebrows to be. I like my eyebrows to be kind of natural looking and not very thick. So I'm going to make them relatively thin, and I'm not going to have a sharp end to them. I'm going to do just a basic eyelid where it starts pretty close to the eye, and when the time it comes out, it's kind of far from the eye like that. If you're drawing eyelashes, note that eyelashes do not curl up when you draw them. They don't show up like that, coming that high. Some people do, but that's usually if you have makeup. Generally, when you look at someone straight in their face, their eyelashes are going down into their eye. They kind of come down into the eye and then they curl up. This depends on how curly the eyelashes are. I personally have pretty straight eyelashes. They're not very curly. But if you have curlier eyelashes, you are going to see some curl come up to the eye, but it's not going to be a lot. It's not going to be very drastic like some people like to draw and how I used to draw sometimes. It's going to come down and up. So just imagine drawing a shape, almost like a U shape, where you go down and up. And that's exactly how the eyelashes are going to look on the eye. Depending on the person's lashes, sometimes it may come down more and curl only up a little bit, or sometimes they'll go down a little less, come down a little less, and curl up more. It all depends on the person's lashes. But I'm just going to do your average lashes, slightly curly, not too curly, and a little messy. And you want to only draw a few. You don't want to draw a lot. It's going to be very sparse. Besides, this is going to be transferred onto a canvas, so you're not going to really see these details that much, and you're not going to be drawn on that well. But that's the end of the video, and we have almost completed the basic face. The next video I'm going to do the outside of the face and the ears and possibly hair. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe so you can see how I paint the face. And give this video a thumbs up.